Hey everybody. All right, so I just took a minute to look over the thesis statements that you guys turned in for extra credit. If you did one, some of you guys didn't, and it was optional. It was for extra credit, so you definitely didn't have to. And I just wanted to make a video kind of giving you some guidelines for next steps on the essay, as well as just anybody who's working on the essay, just some tips I hope that will benefit you on this paper and then any other papers that you have to write. So I'm going to try to move fast so I can fit this all into one video because I think I have a time limit on the thing that I use to record with. If you want to see my awkward shirt, it says Motherhood Life because that's me. Okay. So how we're approaching these essays. I'm just going to kind of give you like a quick and dirty way to organize your essays that will work in any setting that you need to write, unless it's like a lab report. Okay, all right, it's going to work in any setting in social sciences or humanities. Let's go with that. It might work in science sometimes, but I'm not gonna claim that. So I'm gonna lead you through kind of how to organize your paper, and by the end of this, I'm gonna have a document that kind of gives you an outline and almost sentence by sentence tells you what you should put into these paragraphs. And I think that will help you so much as you try to organize. It should keep you from getting writer's block, which is the worst. So hang tight with me here and we're going to roll with it. So for any paper, you know that you need to start with an introduction. And an introduction for any paper should have three components: a hook, transition, and thesis. Now, I am going to keep this history class specific, but you can modify this to fit, if you need to write a paper in English about a short story or a poem, there are ways that you can modify this, but still keep this same format. Okay, so for a history paper specifically, I think a good hook, and the purpose of a hook is to grab your reader's attention, is you can use a quote from a historical figure. I think that's the easiest way to grab somebody's attention. So, depending on if you guys are doing the Karl Marx prompt, you could choose a Marxian quote that's kind of interesting that would be grabbing your reader's attention. If you're doing the French Revolution, there's some debate about whether Marie Antoinette said, she was told that the people are starving, and her response was, well, then let them eat cake if they have no bread. And that may or may not have had a lot to do with why they cut her head off. So that's a famous quote, and that could be something that you reference, but you just want a little something to grab the attention. So you could do a quote from a historical figure person. You could give an interesting fact or statistic. You could talk about, if you're doing the Columbian exchange, which I don't think I gave you a prompt on that because we really talked about that a lot. You can do an interesting fact or statistic. Did you know that this percent of the population died as a direct result of diseases brought about in the Columbian exchange? That's a good way to bring them up. You could quote a short story or a poem at the time. The deal for the hook, though, overall, is you just want it to be 1 to 2 sentences. Not something very long. It's short and sweet and grabs your attention. Okay. Then we move on to our transition within the paragraph. And in the transition, you're going to give some historical background. And in that background, I want you to make sure that you identify, basically you're letting your reader know what you're talking about. So you need to identify the who, if you've got people involved, what, when, where, etc. So you're setting the stage. If you're doing the relationship between the monarchy and church in England, you're going to give me some background about what England is like during that time period, and you're letting me know I'm talking about the 1500s. I'm talking about England. We're looking at the church. If you need to, this is also a good place to define terms. So if you're going to be talking about a term in your paper that could be confusing to your readers, you could go ahead and let them know. Or if you're talking about a group or something, giving them some background to let them know. Sorry, I'm getting emails at the same time, to let them know what you're talking about. So if you're doing the Ottoman Empire prompt, you should give them a little background on, how long the Ottoman Empire existed. It was, I think, the longest empire in history still at this point. So that your reader has a point of reference. However, I do not want you to let this get too long. You don't want, you're given this is a preview for the movie of what your essay is going to be about. You're letting everybody know, like, the preview, like, this is where we're going to be and stuff, but I'm not going to give away all my secrets yet that I want to get to in the body. So again, even for this background information, no more than 3 sentences. Okay? So again, we're keeping it short and sweet. We don't want an introduction that gives away all of our things before we're going to get to the body. We don't want to do that. We want to give them most of the info there. And then finally, our thesis statement. Again, if you sent me a thesis statement for extra credit, I know I need to go back and give you extra credit points. I'm going to make that happen. But I did give you some feedback on how your thesis statement looks, as far as, here's how I would edit it, or whatever. I try to give you some feedback. For those of you who haven't done your thesis statements yet, or if you're just unsure, for history, like, here is my generic history thesis statement that will work for every history paper pretty much, and will set you up to have a nicely organized essay. So my generic go-to is always, in order to better understand, and then whatever your prompt is. So it could be, in order to better understand the causes of the French Revolution, in order to better understand Marxian theory, in order to better understand Ottoman use of weapons, or the relationship between church and state, blah, 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 whatever your paper is about. One must examine. And then here you just make a list. And I'm going to say, for a paper of this length, 3 pages sounds like a lot until you really get into it. Honestly, 3 pages could be a 5-paragraph essay most of the time. If you're writing nice fat body paragraphs, you're going to get to 3 pages. So I would say just go to list 3 to 4 items that you're going to turn into body paragraphs here. Okay, so for example, I'm going to write one that's not for one of the prompts just in case. In order to better understand the legacy of the Columbian exchange, one must examine the spread of disease, because we know that is important. The scourge, I like nice words, of slavery, because we know the slave trade started at that point, and the political impact of colonization. Okay. That's just like a sample one there, but you can see how I can turn that almost into fill in the blanks. Here I go. I've got my nice intro paragraph. And now here's what I really want you to see though. How many sentences is that thesis? It's just one sentence. Okay. There are many ways to write. I never like any of the metaphors that I try to use or comparisons, there are many ways to write, just like there are many ways to do whatever. Instead, this is a way to write. This is my way to write, and I feel like it's an easy way to write in an easy format to learn. So, all right, this gets you through introduction paragraphs. This is not going as fast as I hoped it would, but I still hope that it's helpful. So here's your intro paragraph. I'm going to make another video for body paragraphs next, and then we'll do one for conclusions, and I can talk about formatting there. So here we go. We're rolling. We're getting it done.